Merry Christmas to all our listeners. You will be listening to this on the 25th of December, and we've had a pretty exciting weekend of football, and we have Boxing Day, the best day of the football season for any football fan. Coming up really shortly, we're going to be talking about all the excitement from the weekend. We're going to be reviewing 2024 in a little bit of detail, with some of our starting with some of our best moments of 2024. Let's get right to that. We have Ashwin and Arvind on the pod today. Ashwin, let's start with you. What's been your talkie moment of 2024?
Yeah, hi everyone. So for me, the talking moment of 2024 is, I would call it the year of Spain, just with everything they did. Real Madrid winning the Champions League, no surprises there, they always win it. But the Euros, I don't think Spain were outright favorites, but they ended up winning that. The good thing about that winning team, the Spain winning team, is that not unlike previous years, it's not just Barcelona and Real Madrid players. There were players from Arsenal, there were players from Real Sociedad, PSG, whatnot. So that was a really, well balanced side, I must say. And then finally ending with Rodri winning the Ballon d'Or, even though we thought that Vinicius would win it. So I would say the year of Spain is my talking moment of the.
All right, that's we all remember how good football finally won a good football tournament as well, and thank God for that. Otherwise, Gareth Southgate may have been crowned the king of the world, and 100 other countries may have chosen to play football in a certain way. Let's see if all that changes thanks to Spain. Coming to you, RK, what's been your talkie moment of the year 2024?
Yeah, for me, it's without the doubt, it's the FA Cup win in a very, I would say, one of the worst years, following United as a fan. Being able to win the FA Cup after finishing eighth in the league and ending up in the Europa, that was a pretty, I think, big achievement. And that FA Cup has a lot of good memories as well. Especially, I think it's one of the blockbuster ties ever in FA Cup history. That was the quarterfinal against Liverpool. So, like as a whole, the tournament had a lot of good things to remember, especially two academy kids scoring in the finals. So I think in a very bad year, it brought good vibes.
All right. Coming to my talkie moment of the season, it has to be being at Anfield to say farewell to the legend that is Jurgen Klopp. I don't remember what happened in that game. If you asked me, I couldn't tell you the score. I can't tell you who scored. I do remember that we won, but all I remember is that for maybe 40, 50, 60 minutes out of the 90, people were just singing the Jurgen Klopp song, and specifically the last 15 minutes of the game where everybody was on their feet singing the song. It was an absolute. This season's not going too badly for Liverpool either. So let's get started with what happened at the weekend. 6 against Tottenham Hotspur. Some would say that score flattered Tottenham. So what did you guys think of the game? What did you guys think of Liverpool? And of course, what did you think of Tottenham?
Yeah, I think it's just more of the same from Spurs, right? If I remember correctly, when we were previewing the game in the previous pod, we were talking of how smart, Slot is in terms of how he shapes his team up from game to game, and how everyone knows how Spurs are going to line up. It's going to be the same, same old tactic of complete outright attack, leaving a lot of gaps at the back, just swashbuckling to the extent of being foolish. I don't think of all the it's not a smart tactic against most teams, but against Liverpool, it's definitely really retarded, and that effect came home to roost. I think Spurs were very lucky to go in at the break also with the kind of scoreline that was there. The first 20 minutes itself, Liverpool should have been ahead. If I remember correctly, like Salah was getting a lot of chances at the start of the game, which he didn't convert. A lot of them, again, like so you have Fraser Foster making the same errors that he made against United, and obviously you have all the spaces between the wing backs which were so well exploited. As the game went on, you could see, and the goals started coming in. Spurs completely lost any small belief they had, because I don't think the players had the belief in the manager to start with that this is going to work. So as soon as Liverpool started scoring goals, you could see the belief completely vanish, to the extent that there were simple balls over the top, that were played over the top, which were just finding Liverpool players. I mean, it was Liverpool were so confident that they were just floating balls over the top. You didn't even need to be particularly good balls, and it was just and then winning second balls so easily, lack of physicality. There are so many things wrong, with Spurs at the moment, that you can keep going on. But credit to Liverpool, they kind of figured out that okay, this is the way in which we can hit them in the most dangerous way, and they made them pay for it.
I think if you are playing at home and you concede 24 shots in total, that's obviously not good reading on you as a team, right? So I know Ange has this particular style of playing, and there are certain managers who are wedded to their style. Like Ruben Amorim is also wedded to his style, but like there needs to be some bit of flexibility even within the games, and that is not something that is visible from Tottenham's style of play and Ange specifically. I do want to acknowledge that Spurs were missing a few players as well, so they didn't have Van de Ven, they didn't have Vicario, like that's fine and all, but like, I mean, come on, like if you are conceding 6 goals at home, there's certainly something wrong. And if you're conceding 3 goals to, a lackluster United team like 4 days back, again, there's definitely something wrong with you. So, I mean, fair play to Liverpool, right? Because even with a better against a better Spurs team, I think they would have won at least 2-0, 3-0 or something of that sort because they have been on that run and they have some really solid players. Rather, I think you mentioned last time, right, about Ryan Gravenberch and the kind of season he has been having. Like, I think he was phenomenal to say the least. And the other player that I particularly want to call out is Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mean, I don't think I've seen a better crosser of the ball. Maybe David Beckham is who comes very close to mind when it comes to good crossers of the ball are concerned. But that first goal that I think Diaz headed in, oh my word, like that was such a peach of a ball. Like it was just perfect. And that was not because of how bad Spurs were. That was just pure quality from him as well. So I think it was a culmination of that poor quality from Spurs, tactical inflexibility from Ange, and then Liverpool just running right.
So rather
Yeah, I
from
think
your perspective, like was there any specific tactical thing that happened, or it was just too easy?
Yeah, so tactically, and this is what has impressed me so much about Slot in his short tenure so far, is he plays a similar-ish system in every game. He plays a similar-ish kind of setup in every game, but he makes small tactical tweaks in every game depending on the opposition, which makes a big difference. For instance, at the start of the season, there were times when he played Soboslai on the right of the three in midfield. There were times when he played Soboslai on the left, depending on which side we were trying to overload or whether we wanted to give a little bit more support to Trent Alexander-Arnold as a right back. In this game, again, Soboslai was the chess piece that he played so amazingly. He literally played Soboslai as a nine in the game. It was, of course, a midfielder on paper, and he was, of course, he was running back and forth between the boxes. But when we had position, for most of the time, Soboslai was even further ahead than Luis Diaz, who was the nine on paper. So that what that did is that gave us four people on the final line of Spurs, and the fact that there was so much space between the midfield and defense of Spurs, it just meant that our midfielders or our defenders had to get one ball through, and there was a very clear tactic that we were trying to play a ball in behind early, either from our centre backs or from Trent or from our midfielders, the two midfielders who stayed back, that's McAllister and Gravenberch, and we kept playing through their midfield, and their two defensive midfielders were just completely taken out of the game because of that. And Soboslai's physical attributes, his speed, his energy, his power, it just completely threw a big spanner in the works for Spurs. He was involved in, I would say, 4 out of the 6 goals in some form. He played like a target man at certain points where we were playing the ball long and he was holding it up, he was heading it on to. In fact, I think the second goal that we scored, or was it the first goal, where he literally heads it on from midfield and then Salah runs in and then plays Soboslai back in for him to score a goal. I think some of these small tactical tweaks that Slot makes, which is more catered to the opposition and their weaknesses, that's been really good. I think we were good enough to beat this team no matter what. They were a really shit open team. You have to say that yes, they have like pretty much three of their back five missing. That's also true. Vicario, their left back was injured. Their centre backs both, I think, are not their first choice. So in that sense, of course, it's not easy to be Spurs right now. But the way that they were playing, how open they were, and how good we were, this was one of the best games I've seen us play. The level of attack and control from the start was incredible. So we should have won no matter what. But yeah, the tactical small things that Slot does are really impressing me.
I think like when I was watching the highlights, maybe that's when I noticed And just correct me here if I'm wrong, but was it McAllister's first goal and Soboslai's second goal of the season or something of the sort? So I think between McAllister, Soboslai and Gravenberch, they haven't really scored that many goals, have they?
Yeah, so it's definitely not been a very high return. I can't tell you if it was their first or second. It sounds off to me that it would be their first or second goal only. Because if I recall, Soboslai scored like maybe in the second or third game of the season, but I don't remember now. But yeah, it's not been a huge, very significant outlay from them. But that being said, Curtis Jones has also popped up for with a few here and there. And that being said, the front five, I'm still calling it a five because I don't think Chiesa has arrived yet, and he's hardly played maybe 2 or 3 games at max. So the front five have all contributed in a good way. So this has been Diaz's best season by far from a return point of view. I think very shortly he'll be crossing his best ever season for Liverpool from an output point of view, and only half the season. Salah, of course, is having midfielders perhaps need to start stepping up, starting with Soboslai. But the way Soboslai played this game and the last 4 or 5 games, he's showing that okay, putting him on the bench for Curtis Jones has really kind of lit that fire back in him, and he's playing really well in a way that no other player can play in that position right.
I think it's like the numbers that Salah is putting up there, it's up for debate whether it can even be called his best season ever if he continues in this way. Despite whatever we talk about his pace having dropped a bit, but when he dribbles at players, you don't really feel as if his pace has dropped that much also, because I think there was a moment where he kind of dribbled past 2 or 3 players on the edge of the box and got a shot away or something like that. Yeah, I'm not able to remember, but yeah.
Yeah, he
But
hit the
you,
post. He hit the post when he just dribbled past 2 guys,
yeah.
and yeah, but
But like when you talked of Spurs missing 3 or 4 players at the back, and this is what strikes me about Spurs, right? They have so many players, missing important players at the back who are missing. They're having to make do with Archie Gray and the likes at the back at the moment, right? It kind of beats me that the manager still sticks to that plan A. He still thinks that he can go that gung ho approach, press high intensity, and still get away with it. So, I mean, is it at least for me? It's so dumb to think that way. Not being able to have any kind of a fallback plan, some way of managing the situation, being able to get results. It's going to be downfall, I think, for Ange.
absolutely. I think he can make as many excuses as he wants, but the fact is, when I still recall when Liverpool lost their entire backline one season, where I think Van Dijk was taken out by Pickford, and we had I think our two young kids playing as centre back, Nat Phillips and Reece Williams playing centre back. I think in that season we didn't do well. Somehow we finished in the top four, but we didn't do well. We didn't get a lot of points. We didn't score a lot of goals, but we changed the way that we played because it was an absolute necessity because of the personnel that were available. Like you can't play a high line and a pressing aggressive game with the likes of Nat Phillips and Reece Williams, right? Now, I'm not saying that Spurs need to drop back, but that equivalent of making that adjustment has to be done. And I don't think Ange is doing that. And he's riding this wave of, hey, this is the way I'm going to be. I like to play front foot football. I still remember, RK, that game that we watched, Chelsea versus Spurs, when they had 9 men. And the way that they played with 9 men, I think at that point of time, the stock of Ange was at an all-time high. And then we saw that match, and I remember we discussing that, okay, if this is the
Yeah.
kind of guy that he is, then he's not going to be anybody serious. Like, sure, he be entertaining, he'll do the odd thing here and there. But when you go down to 9 men and you still play that naive, stupid way that they did in that match against Chelsea, I think that tells you that he has some issues. Now, over a longer period, are Spurs going to be a good team when they have their players available? Can they manage it, and can they be entertaining and exciting for their fans? Sure, but I'll never take them seriously as a like a proper threat to a lot of trophies if they're going to be this not going to be pragmatic at all. So yeah, I think problems for sure for Spurs. All right, let's move on to Arsenal. We didn't talk about Arsenal too much last week, where they dropped points. This week, they actually picked up the points and were quite impressive while doing so. Scored a lot of goals, comfortably beating a tricky team, a team that has given a lot of other teams some problems recently. But even though they won so handsomely, there is a feeling of loss around Anfield, around Arsenal right now. They've lost Bukayo Saka. And the one, well, some would argue not a great replacement anyway. But the one replacement they potentially signed, he seems to be injured as well. So we're talking about 4 or 5 weeks without Bukayo Saka or Raheem Sterling. And we talked about it at the start of the season, RK. He has not answered important questions in his squad in terms of depth when it comes to Bukayo Saka and Odegaard. They've lost Odegaard for the first half of the season. We saw how much that impacted them. Now they've lost Saka, and he's come out in the press and said we started the season with the thinnest squad. So my question to you, RK, is how are Arsenal going to deal with this, and whose fault is it that they have such a thin squad?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Whose fault is it? I don't really know how they're going to deal with it. One option, at least what they did during the match, is probably the go-to option where Martinelli plays on the right. He had a decent display on the right. So he has shown the capability to be able to go on the outside, put crosses in. So probably, that does take away, because you play a right footer on the right, it does take away from being able to cut in and score. But I think that's the best option that they have at the moment, to play Martinelli on the right and maybe play Jesus, or Trossard will be the first option on the left, so that will be their go-to option now with Sterling also not there. But yeah, it's all about how did they allow the situation to pass. Is Arteta, I mean, is he being boastful, or is he being sarcastic or pointing out some problem when he says that they have the thinnest squad going into 2024? I mean, you are the most powerful man at the club, and how can you come and say that we have the thinnest squad going into the season? Like, didn't they know it? We have been talking about it for a couple of years that they don't have a replacement, especially for Saka. Odegaard, at least till this summer, they had, in terms of Emil Smith Rowe, they had replacements. Nwaneri is coming through, so probably they won't miss Odegaard. Obviously, Odegaard is a world-class player, so he will be missed. But Saka doesn't have a replacement at all, and I think the same situation holds true for the striker spot as well. Maybe Jesus with Christmas around the corner started scoring goals, but till that point in time, a striker was also a big problem for them. So I'm not sure what was happening behind the scenes. It's not really come out. Unfortunately, Arsenal don't do as many leaks as United seem to. So we don't really know, what happened behind Edu leaving. What's the story there? Who was actually responsible? Is it a PSR issue? Because that was also a problem with Arsenal. They are also pretty hard done by with PSR, not really able to spend much until they, are able to sell players, but also having sold players for very good amounts. Like, you had Nikitia leaving. I think Nikitia was also permanent transfer. You had Smith Rowe leaving. It's the financial situation for Arsenal is getting better because when you are in this kind of evolution as a club, where you have really good players in your squad, and then other people want your players, then you start really earning money also. So I think this was a huge missed opportunity for Arsenal this summer. And I don't know, hopefully we will get to know in the near future what really happened and why. Arteta publicly has never talked about the right wing being a problem position in any, and I know this because I have been following Arsenal because of my brother being such an ardent fan. He's never made any public statement in any transfer window saying that they need to replace, or right wing is a problem position for us. He always talks about midfield, like he got Merino in, he talked about defense, but never about right wing. So I think there is definitely some responsibility for Arteta as well.
Talking specifically about Saka right now, these are some really damning stats, RK. Arsenal's highest assister of the season is, of course, Saka. He was top of the assist chart in the league with 10 assists in such a short period of time until Mo Salah overtook him at the weekend. That's 10 assists. The next highest for Arsenal is 3 assists. I think they're losing a lot of creativity when it comes to losing Saka. He's also their second top scorer, albeit with only 5 goals. They have not scored a lot of goals this season. Their top scorer has only got 6 goals in the season so far, but he's next with 5. Yes, Odegaard is back, but when Odegaard wasn't there, we all complained so much on this pod and on our groups about how they're not creating chances and they're reverting to the corner tactic as plan A. Are you afraid of that happening again now that Saka's available, or can they manage with Leandro Trossard or Kai Havertz and whoever they have?
Like the problem that is going to come, Radha, is that a set piece was their kind of plan A or whatever you call it, right? Now with Saka not there for 6, 7 weeks, how much ever that's going to be, it's even the corners is going to become a problem because probably 80% of the corners was being taken by Saka, and he was excellent on this on delivery, especially this season. There have been times in the past where I felt okay, the delivery isn't that great, but this season he was spot on. All the everything you can talk about good corners. So I don't know how they're going to replace his corners, because you talked about 10 assists. probably a lot of the assists have come from corners as well, or from set pieces. So that's going to be a big issue. I think the silver lining for them is that Jesus did well. He's kind of used all this, there's so many jokes about Christmas and like Mark Goe being a devout Christian and stuff like that. But it's really good for Arsenal that they have a striker who's starting to score goals. And I also, when I was seeing the Carabao Cup highlights, it seemed like this guy really took his finishes very calmly. Like the first finish was a chipped finish, then and the remaining two finishes were far post. So I think that it's a good thing that Jesus has started scoring, but it's not going to be easy to fill Saka's boots at all. And we don't really know how long he's going to be out for. If it's 3 or 4 weeks, it's still good for them. But Arteta was talking about, I mean, you never believe Arteta, but he was talking about Saka being, coming back before the end of the season, so to say. So, that is some
All
level of exaggeration, obviously. But
reports suggest that he will be out for 5 to 6 weeks. Technically, that is before the end of the season. A very Arteta thing to say and do. But yeah, I think there's no doubt about it. They are in trouble, and let's hope they can manage to create a bit more and not revert to their kind of plan A of corners, which they were guilty of doing for some point during the season. Anyway, they might start the weekend next week because Liverpool play first. They might start 9 points behind Liverpool. There's pressure on them because they can't afford any more losses or dropping of points. They can't afford to take it to a double-digit kind of deficit to Liverpool either, and they've just lost their talisman. So yes, it's going to be challenging times for Arsenal and a big smack in the face in a week where they actually did really well and won a good game in the Premier League. All right. Now let's move to a section where we want to talk about the managers around in the world. So there are a lot of new managers, new faces in the Premier League itself, and a few of them around Europe as well. So we're going to go around the board with you, RK and Ashwin, and we're going to talk about your rankings of these managers out of 10. So we'll alternate between the two of you. Just keep it interesting. So let's start with Ashwin, because he is, of course, the in-house Pep Guardiola fan. So let's start with Ashwin. Ashwin, this has been the weirdest season we've ever seen from Man City, perhaps. What would you rate Pep Guardiola out of 10?
Rather, it's been a season of two halves with Pep Guardiola. Like I would have never imagined that Pep would be struggling like this. So I'll probably give
is he
him.
gone again?
Yeah, it looks like. Okay, he seems to be. He just appeared and then he went off, I think.
Hotspot issues.
Hold on, man. Just one
क्या
second.
हुआ
Man.
Wi-Fi?
I think I'm. यार पता नहीं क्या है. Like I moved providers last 3-4 months back. तो उसके बाद सारा issue solve हो. Hotspot off. एक second. I'll just do a very quick check. Okay, fine, right? I know I've asked 3 times already. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So I
Yeah,
think it's been a season of or a year of two halves with Pep, right? I would have never thought he would struggle the way he has struggled. Obviously, a great season last year and a woeful season this year. So I'll probably give him maybe a 7 out of 10. Yeah, 7 seems just about right.
I mean, okay. I wasn't even thinking about last season, but sure. Okay, so 7 on 10. Ashwin says for Pep Guardiola, it can't be more than a 4 or a 5 for the 2024-25 season at least. All right, coming to you, RK, and I'm going to come to you with one of your favorites and somebody that you've bitched about a lot and talked about a lot on the pod, perhaps not so much, but definitely off the record. So Fabian Herzler. Now, RK had a thought that he was getting a lot of media attention because of his young age. But at least half the season on, he seems to be lasting at least in the top, like say 7, 8 places. He seems to be challenging there or thereabouts. So what do you make of his season? He's pure mid-table right now, but what do you think?
I think, better than what I expected at the start in terms of how young he was and how much the media, it was less about Hustler and more about how the media tries to have their favorite media darlings, so to say. But yeah, I would probably give him a 6.5 or 7. They have done a decent job, but I think recently the results have tailed off. Having a very young squad, a young manager probably starting to show, but still encouraging signs. It's kind of the Brighton way. So they have kind of retained the Brighton way, so to say. So I would still give him 6.7.
Okay, and we are going to
So
use
as
the
good as
snake.
Pep then.
I don't think he would have rated Pep at 7, so probably
Yeah.
better than Pep. So we're going to use the snake draft rule. So we'll be back to you, RK, for this one. Let's talk about Maresca. He's a mini Pep of his own, as that's what the media would like you to believe. Lot of shit written about Maresca and Chelsea at the start of the season. I think it's fair to say that everybody's had to eat some humble pie when it comes to Chelsea. At least from an attacking point of view, they are outstanding. They've been outstanding this season. And from a results point of view,
Chelsea is very similar, at least at the start of the season, to the United job. It's one of the kind of impossible jobs in football. People were coming in and struggling right, left, and center. So for Maresca to come into that mess and being able to make the meaning that he has made out of it is really, really commendable. It's not just in terms of the attack. He also seems to have got it spot on in terms of the man management. Players seem to be playing, for him. We have seen kind of basket cases like Sancho, who actually struggled to be motivated in life, but they seem to have turned a page. So he seems to be someone who's capable of getting more out of people than what other people have been able to. So, like for me, I would definitely Maresca has been very, very impressive tactically as a manager, 9 out of 10. For especially because he's Chelsea manager. I think that amplifies his rating for sure.
all right, and coming to you, Ashwin, another, I would have probably expected this guy to be on the top of the league. Probably expected him to be the best of the rest for this season. But we've had questions about his recruitment this season. His technical director, sporting director, has just left the club. They are potentially 9 points behind the top of the table at the moment. Mikel Arteta was very clearly the second best manager, or the second best manager of the second best team in the league last season. Doesn't seem so clean cut this time. So, what would you rate Mikel Arteta?
I think it's like another manager we who I expected to be doing much better than he's actually doing this time around, right? So I don't think he's lost it completely as Pep has, for sure, and he's still within the reaches of the title. So let's just give him like a 7 out of 10. I feel like I probably rated Pep too high then, but yeah, let's just give him 7 out of 10 for now. I do feel that there are certain things that he has tweaked this time around with the style of play. Maybe he has gone a bit more defensive minded, which I don't necessarily like. I think it was definitely a breath of fresh air, in the previous seasons. And I think he's in the guise of making Arsenal a much more solid team. He's just obsessed over defense. So that bit is something that I didn't like from Arteta that much. And of course, he's a liar. So yeah, no, actually, you know what? 6 out of 10.
Oh wow! So 6 out of 10 for Arteta. I think that set piece coach deserves a 10 on 10 though. Whoever he is, I don't know his name, but definitely a 10 on 10 kind of guy. Coming to you, RK, the man of the moment at the moment, Arne Slot. What would be your rating or ranking for Arne Slot?
I think I should leave the rating to you, Radha. What do you say?
Oh, for me, it's a clean 10. I have absolutely no complaints about. In fact, no complaints is almost putting a negative spin on the sentence. This is like stuff of dreams. I had no expectation that we would be potentially 7 points ahead of the second place team if we win a game in hand. Even assuming we don't win the game in hand, 4 points ahead of the rest of the pack at Christmas, playing the way that we are, scoring the most goals, conceding the least, controlling a lot of good games, playing so well in the big games as well. For somebody who's just joined the league from, we have to be honest, a pretty bad league, a pretty low quality league in the sense of the size of expectations and teams. In that sense, absolutely blew all expectations of smithereens. Nothing but a clean 10 on 10 for me.
Yeah,
All
agree.
right, all right. We'll move on. This one is a little bit of a, okay. Who should I ask? Let's give RK this one. RK Eric Ten Hag.
It has to be somewhere around 4, I guess. At best. I mean, FA Cup gets 3.5 of those. The less said about that, the better. But I have a lot of sympathy with Ten Hag. I still feel he's a great manager. He just chose the wrong tactics. He chose tactics which he wasn't comfortable with, and that's why he couldn't succeed. And hopefully Amorim is at least on the right foot in terms of he might fail, but he has publicly said that he will stick to what he knows. So I think Ten Hag has a future. I hope he does well.
All right. So that was four. Was that 4 on 10, RK, that you did? Okay. I'm not going to ask you about Amorim, Ashwin, because it has been too short a period of time. But I'll ask you about the manager we just spoke about in the previous section, Ange Postecoglou. So I think it's been a yo-yo kind of season for, not season, yo-yo kind of career in the Premier League for Postecoglou. He was flying high in the sky at one stage. Nothing could touch him. I think the media darlings, everybody from the media had lined up to stroke Mr. Ange Postecoglou's ego. Things have changed definitely since then. So what would be your ranking of Ange?
I think if Ange Postecoglou was at United, he would have struggled even more than Ten Hag would. Like that's what I would say about him. Like he might be a media darling, and he might have this fancy accent and like whatnot, but like he is annoying. Like his style of play is annoying. Like I can watching his team play is amazing for neutrals. Watching his team play for his own fans is probably not something that they would want. So I would probably rate him similar to what RK rated Ten Hag, right? So 4 out of 10. Actually, take 1 point off, for the fact that he keeps calling everyone mate. So 3 out of 10.
Absolutely a very, very clean bar on quality there for Ashwin. No bias whatsoever. So, okay, coming to you again, Ashwin. And now you guys need to go a little bit quicker. So we have a few more names that we should just ramp. We should get your ratings and maybe one line to tell us why. But what about Unai Emery? So great season for him last season. Not doing as well this time around, though not bad at all, and also doing really well in the Champions League. So Ashwin, what would you rate Emery?
I think 8 out of 10. The fact that he has kept them in the Champions League, the fact that they are like in the top three in the Champions League, I think brilliant. 8 out of 10. And I also feel that they will reach the Champions League again.
Okay, that's a good call. That's a big call. So they'll finish in the top four in this really competitive season. Interesting. RK, coming to you, Chabi Alonso. We all know how last season ended. It's probably 11 on 10. How have things gone this season? What would your overall rating be?
Yeah, I think that 11 goes to 9 rather because they had a bit of a shaky start to the season, but they have kind of started catching up. If I'm not mistaken, they are in the top 8 in the Champions League and they are back in the title race in the Bundesliga as well. So they continue to do well. So 9 for me. One of the best teams of the season for sure. One of the highlights of the season.
Absolutely, and completely nobody saw it coming for sure. And very happy, one of my favorite players of all time, and good luck to him. Sticking with that Bundesliga race, Company was another big shock and a surprise in the summer. Nobody expected that to happen going to Bayern Munich. What has happened with him? What do you make of his season so far?
It's so tough, right? Because we are talking about 2024 and not this season specifically. Of course, Bayern have been playing well. They are on course to winning the title. They are doing good in okay in the Champions League as well. He's got the best out of players like Musiala. Kane is performing really well as well. So if you want me to rate him based on Burnley and Bayern Munich combined, maybe like somewhere middle. So maybe a 6 out of 10.
A sentence nobody would have ever had to say in their lives, combining Burnley and Bayern Munich, and making a rating out of it. But all right, so six-ish kind of rating. The last one for the day, then RK. This is one of my personal favorite managers. Again, I'm not going to say that he's one of the best tacticians in the world or the most sound at getting the job done. In definitely not a very defensive minded coach, but I just love the way his team plays. And yes, they sometimes fail, but most of the time they play.
Yeah, definitely 8 on 10 for me. And the best part for me is that he's such an un-Spanish manager, such a direct team, such so vertical, play at transition, play with speed. So very, very refreshing. And there are stats that I was reading which show that they are probably the third best team in the Premier League right now.
Yeah, a lot of, and I hope they go from strength to strength. Where are they in the? Oh, they're fifth. Oh my God, they're ahead of Man City. It doesn't get better than that. A very, very deserved 8 on 10. Okay, sorry, one more because we have to talk about who's fourth right now. Nottingham Forest are fourth. They were probably in deep shit last season. Somehow they're in the top four of the Premier League right now with all the problems that they've had. Any one of you can talk about what I mean. He was out of a career. He failed at Spurs. He was pretty damn good at Wolves, I have to say, but then failed at Spurs, and now this with Nottingham Forest. What more? What is your rating and what's more to come?
I mean, for the very fact that he's failed at Spurs and he was not a popular appointment at Forest as well, I would give him an 8 out of 10. The 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 way he has turned things around at Forest, how he's got the best out of players like Alanga and Wood. and like Yates, like so many good stories coming up there, right? So I would rate him an 8, easy.
Yeah, I would even go so far, maybe nine, maybe pushing 9.5 also for me. He's been an incredible, considering the turmoil that that club is always in and all of that, I would say that it's been a hell of a job. I don't think anybody would have seen, I know they're not going to finish in the top four, but top eight, top seven would still be a huge achievement for a club. So congrats Nuno on what he's doing for Forest. All right then. Just before we end the last episode of the year, let's talk about your hopes and dreams for 2025. Let's start with you, RK. What are you wishing for this Christmas and this New Year?
So there are hopes, dreams, and there are nightmares, Radha. So, I think the hope is that we get to see a proper team in the identity of Amorim and he's able to put his blueprint on the team, make them convincing in defense and attack in the way that it was in Sporting. The nightmare part is obviously what depths can Ratcliffe and Ineos go to. It's not been obviously completely a disaster from their side. There have been some good things, but I see a very, like I see a rush to be decisive and then end up making wrong decisions. That's the fear I have, and also you combine that with being very very miserly in the wrong places. So and being spendthrift in the again in the wrong places. So I am having a trepidation about Ineos. I don't really like what I've seen so far, but at the same time, I'm very hopeful about Amorim, and some of the transfers have been also good. So that's my hope and nightmare.
All right. Coming to you, Ashwin. Something out of a nightmare, something out of a dream. What are you wondering for 2025?
More of hope, I would say, not hope for United, but hope for some form of justice in the sense that really want City, to be found guilty as far as those FFP charges are concerned. We have been talking about this for ages, and I'm sure they have good lawyers who can back things up. But it's about, a club defiantly flouting rules, and it is very, very evident that they have been, and all of their success has been dependent on them flouting rules. And I really, really want those charges to be proven. And, I don't care about the fact that we will win some titles out of it. I want them to be relegated on the back of them.
Ashwin endearing himself to our Man City fan listeners and hoping for the
Yeah,
best
fuck them. Fuck the four fans that go to Athletic.
for Man City. All right, coming to mine. Yeah, hopes and dreams indeed. Number 20 is the hope and dream that I have. If we can keep this kind of form going and win that 20th league title, and this time, since COVID is far behind us, I desperately want to be in Liverpool for a parade, and hopefully we have something to celebrate at the end of the season. My visa's already arranged, boys, so don't let me down. Just do what you need to do, win something big this season, preferably that 20th league title, and get back on the perch with Manchester United. That would be the dream for 2025. Talky Taka podcast for the year of 2024. It's been a great year. It's been a fantastic year of football. It's been a great year from a podcast point of view, and we're going to go strong. We're going to keep going strong in 2025 as well, and a lot of excitement yet to come, starting with the Boxing Day fixtures and the New Year's Day fixtures. And we'll be back in the new year to talk about those, and also the Champions League when it restarts. Until then, listeners, have a great Christmas, have a great New Year's. Take care.